Well, welcome to our next episode of the WARBC Pastor Meet and Greet. I have with me today Pastor Jack Austin from Calvary Baptist Church in Wisconsin Rapids. So thank you, Jack. Thanks for being here today.
Well, it's my turn. I got to take my swing. I've been watching the other ones, and now I'll do what I can to turn it around a bit.
Well, we're so grateful that you took the time to do this today, and I know some pastors have told me they've appreciated watching these videos, and so we're grateful. Now, I've really been looking forward to this one because you and I have this friendship, and there's something that kind of draws us together. It's like magnetism, and for a while I didn't know what it was. I just always was like, man, this guy, there's something about him. And then lo and behold, I found out that you too are a Wolverine University of Michigan fan, and that must be what it is.
It has to be that. It was either that or Jesus. I'm not sure which one, but it was probably Jesus, and then right behind that is the Wolverine fan thing.
Well, maybe I should start this recording over again. And Jesus juked me there, so that was excellent. That was very good. Hey, tell us a little bit about your background. Where you grew up and ministry experience, things like that.
Well, I had humble beginnings. I was born the son of a sharecropper, and it was a tough life. And then things got hard as I grew up, and I kept going. But seriously, and I got to be serious, I start stories like that, and it immediately gets my wife into one of two reactions: either the roll of the eyes, or if I'm starting that in some other kind of social setting, I'll get this death grip on my arm or leg saying, please, Jack, just shut up, would you please? The serious side of it is, though, I did wind up, I have the privilege of growing up in a home where my parents were believers, and so they got me involved in church early on. Whenever it was legal to bring a kid into the nursery, I don't know what it was, but and so my parents were members of that church my whole life, and on way past my life, frankly. My mom passed away, and it was in that church where her funeral took place, and but what happened in those is that I got to understand the gospel. My dad was a machinist, and my mom started life with us at home, and then went to work for a doctor's office. So they weren't vocational ministry people, but they taught me about Christ, and so it was at maybe when I was about 15, I had a Navy chaplain that gave a presentation at our church, and that's when I realized God might be interested in using me in ministry. And so I said, okay, Lord, you got it. I don't know what this means. But so my teen years were spent active in church life and youth group stuff. And I really didn't discover that I could share my faith and not get shot at verbally at school until probably halfway through my junior year. If I have one regret, is that I wish I would have gone back and started earlier with more overt witnessing opportunities. I had the subtle ones. I'd carry my Bible in. Mm-hmm. I'd read it during study hall, but it wasn't until my junior and senior year that I really tried to look for more opportunities there. And then from there I went to Faith Baptist Bible College in Ankeny, Iowa. Moved back to Grand Rapids, hoping to get involved with seminary or whatever. And when I got back there, Sue and I were married through Bible college. Halfway through. And then we got involved with a one-year pastor internship. It was a School of Church Ministries at Calvary Baptist Church in Grand Rapids. And that was an 11-month internship, highly structured, highly beneficial, a whole lot of work. And it really helped shape how I think about ministry and have done ministry. And then I actually didn't get to complete seminary, even though that's why I went to Grand Rapids. I didn't get involved in seminary to complete it until 2013.
Oh, wow.
And so there was a gap there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Uh,
Where did you finish in 13 from the same place you started, or did you
no,
go?
no. Actually, I was at Grand Rapids Baptist Seminary when I started. And
Okay.
and I was after it. I was going through that. I had taken a couple of courses at Baptist Bible College in their graduate program and in their seminary. But I was working on a master's of religious education.
Okay.
Well, the glitch happened. Our kids continued to grow, and somehow they needed to be fed.
Right.
Uh,
They're so
they
needy.
they expected to have shoes or something,
What's up with that?
Yeah, they're always demanding something out
I
of
know. I know.
it. Well, not only did it require feeding them and putting shoes on their feet, but then they wanted to go to school,
Yeah.
afterwards. And so I put mine on hold
Mhm.
while we got through those college tuition years. And then when our last child was headed, Bethany was heading off to school and finishing up. Then Sue said, "Don't you think it's about time you finish up?" Yeah, it is. I mean, I was within 7 hours of
Oh,
finishing.
wow. Wow.
And so then I get a hold. There's been a major rework of everything at Grand Rapids Baptist Seminary, and we don't offer that program any longer. And so I said, how much of this stuff would transfer into a new program? 6 hours. So I switched then and jumped in Clark Summit at Baptist Bible Seminary. So
I hope more than 6 hours were able to be credited at Clark Summit.
yeah. And part of it was because some of the work had been done there previously, and there was some makeup work kind of things that I had to add to it.
Sure.
But I definitely preserved more of my work than I would have if I'd started over again. So and money, that was another factor.
Yeah, because it's not just the work you have to do again. Paying for those classes again. That's brutal. So so you finished that in 13 then. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And go ahead.
Yeah, and in those years, I jumped into ministry right after that internship. So in 1985, I was in Erie, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for about 4.5, 5 years, and then moved to Clark Summit and spent 12 years there. And then we're on year 19 here. So from Clark Summit, I came out here. So I cannot believe it's been that long, but that's kind of a drone overview of my life.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool that you were in the same church for, last 19 years. That's not the norm. And so what do you think some of the benefits of being in the church for that long have been for you, and maybe even potential drawback?
It's crazy. The ministries here and the one in Clark Summit are vastly different. I was there 12 years.
Wow.
But being in a college town, in a ministry school setting, there were constantly people in there for schooling and gone. And so much of what was done was repeated every few years because there were new people in ministries doing same kinds of ministries, but new people doing them. So they needed that. Here, you're talking to people that have served in those children's classes for decades. They were nursery coordinators for long times. And so the ministry had a very different flavor to it. And I think my wife and I enjoy people, and we love the time we have with them. And I think the advantage here is that we did life for 19 years with the same group of people. And it forces you to stay at the word. You can't repeat your lessons that you did before. You can't do the same series of Mother's Day messages or whatever that you might have had elsewhere. And you watch the culture around you change, and you can stay with it and see what does that mean for your church. I've watched the demographic change in our setting here
Oh yeah.
when I came 19 years ago. So I think those are the advantages that happen in the ministry side of it. Um,
Is there any
so
disadvantages to being there for 19 years that you can think of?
yeah, yeah. Probably now I was only in that first spot for about 4.5 or 5 years, and I really wasn't eager to move then.
Hmm.
I actually set a goal that I wouldn't be one of those statistics. I wanted to be longer. I think the trade-off is that when you're in a spot for long term, you will have ample time to offend everybody at least once.
Ah. That's an interesting perspective, and I know that there's somewhat humor in that and stuff, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of truth to that.
And,
Yeah.
and so you have to know as best you can how to navigate the expectations for the long term
Mm.
and reassure people that if you miss it at one spot, you disappoint them, you let them down, that you're going to try to recover from that somehow, and you get different circumstances that are probably more challenging.
So a few years ago, you had a transition from the associate pastor at Calvary there to become a lead pastor, senior pastor, whatever the title you guys use there is. And some of that is really good, some of that's difficult, and things like that. So now you're what, 3 years beyond this, or how long has it been? About 3 years ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and it's funny when John was stepping out of this role and there was this transition. There were increased responsibility. We just run a church,
Right.
and so the preaching and the meetings and the budgets and the elections of officers and all of that stuff continued on. So when the candidating process was underway and we were doing our searching, there were the day-to-day, month-to-month stuff we were still covering. Well, then that transition happened when our search committee, of which I was a part, asked if I would step into a different category and would I now be considered, because I told them initially, let's stay with our plan. We got one, let's go for it. And so that the church decided on that, but we had the vote, and I guess there was a little, so what's changed? There's a vote on Sunday night, but maybe the responsibilities, it didn't feel any different than it was on Monday morning when I came in, because I
Yeah.
was doing some of the same things. So,
Yeah.
but I think, there's an appreciation, deep appreciation for what John did in bringing leadership development in and helping our church be in a healthy spot. And we are very different. You ask our church family and they would see that too. John and I know that,
I was going to highlight that because, I know John well, worked with him within the state fellowship here. And I know you, and you guys are different. And, just like my predecessor here at the church I serve at was vastly different than me. And he was here 10 years and well-loved, very charismatic personality. A lot of people maybe even watching this will remember him. And, I'm friends with him and grateful for his influence in the church here. But we are different and we lead differently. And so what are some of the ways that your differences have been highlighted at Calvary? And not to say better or worse or anything. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about just a difference of maybe it's your personality or leadership style, preaching style. What comes to your mind when you think of differences between you and John?
Well, I could take the next few minutes and tell you everything that I wish I was like John. And by that I mean, and I've told him this, if he were ever to watch this, there wouldn't be anything new here, because we've got a great friendship, interaction and all that. But what John was really, really good at doing, he had this, if you were ever in a trauma situation, you want that first responder to come on and assess what's going on and make the right calls because it's critical. What John did so well is when a family hit a critical element like that, he could jump in and he'd go into his first responder mode kind of thing. And that was an absolute blast to watch that. I mean, I'm sitting back thinking, how did he develop that skill and what is it? So that part of it was there. And then the other thing that he does differently is he thinks, I just call it 5, 6, 7 steps ahead of where the rest of us think. You know, there's something in his mind that, and cause and effect and all of that stuff. And so, yeah, he is wired differently. And the thing is that I had to be comfortable and I had to embrace how God wired me. And I think that has taken some time. Sure. Because I would want to mimic and I'd want to be the things that I couldn't be. And so he would be directive and I'm more collaborative in my style. So there's a key difference that because he knew where he wanted the group to go, he could map that out. And I'm building that. You know, my style is to build it with the people that we're serving. And it takes sometimes longer.
Oh, absolutely does.
To do that. And but our church has been extremely gracious. And it's not been without difficulty in kind of meshing all of that. And, you know, you mentioned Craig being there for 10 years. Well, John was here over 20.
Yeah.
You know, so there is a depth of ministry that he brings and had. And so we are different though. And there's days when I call him up and said, hey, are you bored yet? You want to come back?
Well, you know, that difference that you highlighted about, you know, directive versus collaborative, it highlights a difference, you know, between me and Craig, you know, here at Memorial. Yeah, I am like you in a sense, a little bit more collaborative, I think, and he'd be a little bit more directive. And both have strengths to them and both have weaknesses to them. And that has been something it just takes a long time. I recently came across some notes I was writing, and I had written down, I think I'm becoming the pastor of the church. And I looked at the date and it was 5 years after I'd gotten here, you know, so I've been here 8 years now. So it's just 3 years ago, I wrote down, I think I'm becoming the pastor of the church. It just takes a long time for a variety of reasons and things like that. So it sounds very similar in some ways. So, hey, one more question, and then we'll let you get back to work. But I always end these interviews asking for any recommendations that you might have, a book, a website, an app, you know, a diet plan. You know, I don't know anything that you think.
Well, thanks for throwing that one in.
No, there was no jabs there, but anything of I'm just starting to think of anything that you think, hey, this would be helpful to my brother pastors in the WARBC.
Well, brother pastors in the WARBC, you know, if you want good sports paraphernalia, you've got to go to the MDen, and that's the site where you're going to find just this wonderful color combination and an array of clothing items that are coordinated. And I think it's one of the best spots you can, you know.
And we'll provide a link in this video.
We could do that. And it takes you way out of that. I mean, the red, just, you know, the red and the, you know, even the.
Well, what are you, wounded and bleeding on the side of the road?
That's exactly right. You want something with a little different look to it. And seriously, the one book that I just finished is called 50 people every Christian should know. And it was
Yeah.
really a compilation from Warren Wiersbe on brief biographies.
Yeah.
And I think it was previously published as Walking with the Giants or something like that.
Exactly it was. That's exactly what it was. Yep.
And the thing that I appreciated about this most recent read is so many of those men and some ladies that made ministry impact, I noticed at what a significant role prayer was in the ministry. And it was intriguing to me and helpful to me that some of those individuals got involved in the political side of life, and it didn't mean they stepped out of the church side of life. And others said, I don't want to be distracted by that. I'm going hard after what God's put me on this earth. And they stayed out of that. And I thought, God has used people with all different kinds of bents, different kinds of backgrounds, and he's still doing that. And I think for me, that was very timely, because we're watching what's happening in our world. What do we do? Do we stay engaged? Do we pull back? Do we say, hey, that's secular? Who cares what government we have? We're going to have kingdom opportunities no matter what. And I think there's a place for both in the body. And so
that's helpful. That's a helpful observation. That's a great book. It's a great recommendation. And so I sure appreciate that. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're busy. I know you got a lot going on. But this is helpful to the other guys and myself. And so thanks. I appreciate you taking time today.
Hey, here's one question for you before you sign off.
Yeah.
When do we get to interview you at some point?
Well, see, that's the advantage of being the one in control, is that you don't have to do it. So at some point, maybe. And I feel like on a serious note, I feel like I'm kind of revealing stuff along the way.
You are.
Each of these interviews, but if you ever want to interview me and we talk about Michigan basketball right now.
Oh, we could have gone on that tangent.
Yeah.
Maybe we can have a second. Never mind.
Yeah. So,
all
right.
Opportunity.
Well, hey, you have a great day and thank you so much.
All right. We'll catch you later.